In March of 1997, a weather journal was found inside a Lockmail supply box at the base of Cerro Aconcagua in Argentina. The box had been cached by a climbing team 2 months earlier, meant to be retrieved on their return descent. They never returned. The journal belonged to Dr. Elena Vargas, a 34-year-old glaciologist and expedition leader. She had kept meticulous daily entries throughout the ascent: weather observations, GPS coordinates, team health assessments, route decisions. The last entry was dated February 9, 1997. The team was still 4 kilometers from base camp. When rescue coordinators opened the journal during the investigation, they noticed something immediately. The handwriting in the final entries didn't match the earlier pages. It was smaller, more erratic, and certain passages had been written over. Words crossed out so heavily the paper had torn in places. Elena's team had consisted of 6 people, all experienced, all accounted for in the early entries. But by the final page, only 3 names appeared. The journal never explained what happened to the others. The expedition had been planned for 11 months. Elena Vargas was a researcher with the Argentine Institute of Snow and Ice, and the climb was part of a university-funded study on altitude sickness and glacial movement. The team was well provisioned. They carried satellite phones, emergency beacons, medical supplies, and redundant navigation equipment. Their route was considered moderate, not technical, not a first ascent. Aconcagua is the highest peak in the Americas, but it's climbed successfully hundreds of times each season. Most deaths occur from altitude-related illness, not environmental hazards. This team should have been fine. The roster was straightforward. Dr. Elena Vargas, team leader and primary researcher Miguel Andrade, mountaineering guide, 19 years of experience drive Hannah Soul, American physician, and high-altitude specialist Lucas Ibarra, logistics coordinator and communications officer Sofia Ruiz, photographer and documentation lead Olivier Tan, Singaporean glaciologist, co-researcher. They departed from Mendoza on January 18th. Base camp was established without issue on January 22nd. Early journal entries described clear skies, strong morale, and efficient progress. On January 29th, the team left base camp for the summit push. The plan was to reach the summit by February 3rd, descend by February 6th, and return to base camp no later than February 8th. February 8th came and went. On February 11th, base camp staff reported no contact. On February 13th, a search team was dispatched. They found the supply cache. They found the journal. They found equipment scattered across a ridge 2 kilometers above the planned route. They did not find the team. The first entry in the journal is dated January 18th. Elena's tone is formal but optimistic. She notes the weight of each pack, the condition of the gear, and the estimated timeline. There are small personal observations. Miguel joking about the food supply, Sophia adjusting camera settings in the van, Hannah reviewing medications. Nothing unusual. The entries continue in this manner for nearly 2 weeks. Weather reports, altitude symptoms, rest intervals. On February 1st, the team reached High Camp 2 at 6,100 meters. Elena wrote that everyone was functional but fatigued. Hannah had treated Lucas for a mild headache. Olivier was experiencing nausea, but remained stable. The entry for February 2nd is longer. Elena described the delay. The weather had shifted unexpectedly. Wind speeds increased, visibility dropped. The team decided to wait an additional day before attempting the summit. Miguel suggested descending to a lower camp to acclimatize further, but the group voted to stay. That night, Sophia reported hearing something outside the tent. Elena's entry is precise. Sophia woke me at 3:20, said she heard movement near the supply tarp. I went out with Miguel. Nothing visible. No tracks. Wind was heavy, likely thermal contraction of equipment or ice shift. She seemed convinced it was something else. Did not specify what. The next line is crossed out, heavily. The paper is torn. Beneath it, in smaller handwriting. She was right. The summit attempt began on February 3rd at 4 o'clock. The weather had cleared. The team moved in 2 ropes, Miguel and Elena in front, the others following in a staggered line. Progress was steady. By 11 o'clock, they were within 300 meters of the summit. Elena's entry from that evening is brief. Reached summit 1345. All 6 present. Took photographs. Olivier complained of vertigo. Hannah advised immediate descent. We began at 1410. Then a gap. The next entry is dated February 5th. 2 full days are missing. The handwriting is different, smaller. The ink is smudged in places, as if the page had gotten wet. Miguel is gone. We don't know when. Lucas says he was there at the last rest stop, but none of us remember seeing him after that. We retraced the route for an hour. No sign. No response on radio. There is no explanation. No mention of an accident. No description of a fall, a crevasse, or an avalanche. Miguel was simply gone. The entry for February 6th is worse. Sophia won't speak. She hasn't said anything since yesterday. Just stares at the horizon. Hannah checked her. No head trauma, no frostbite. She's physically fine. But she won't look at any of us. Olivier wanted to leave her. Said we can't carry someone who won't move. I told him we stay together. He didn't argue, but I don't think he agrees. Lucas is keeping the GPS log. I asked him to write down our position every hour. He's been doing it, but when I checked the paper tonight, some of the coordinates were repeated. Same numbers, 3 times in a row. I asked him why. He said he didn't write them that way. Then, written in the margin, the cairns are moving. Part 2. Cairns are stacked stones used as trail markers. Climbers build them to mark safe routes, water sources, or campsites. They're simple, stable, permanent. Elena's journal refers to them 6 times in the final entries. On February 6th, she wrote, "Passed the same cairn twice. I'm sure of it. We've been descending south-southwest for 4 hours. But the cairn we passed at 11 o'clock was in front of us again at 14:30. Olivier says I'm wrong. He says it's a different one. But I marked the first one with a red cloth for my pack. The second cairn had the same cloth. I didn't tie 2 cloths. This entry is followed by a list of coordinates. They span a 3-kilometer radius, but they circle the same elevation band. The team should have been descending. According to the GPS data Lucas recorded, they were moving laterally. They were going in loops. On February 7th, the tone of the journal shifts. The entries become fragmented, less structured. Elena writes in short bursts, sometimes mid-sentence, as if she's recording thoughts in real time instead of summarizing the day. Hannah is insisting we stop, says we need to establish a fixed camp and wait for extraction. I told her we're too high. She's not listening. Lucas found something near the last rest stop, a glove. He says it's Miguel's. It was sitting on top of a rock. Folded, not dropped, not lost. Folded. Olivier won't let us stop moving. He keeps saying we're close. But close to what? We've been walking for 9 hours. We should have reached the ridge by now. There's a long blank space on the page. Then, at the bottom, Sophia spoke. She said, "It's watching us count." There are no entries for February 8th. The page is blank except for a single line written diagonally across the center. Hannah, stay behind. Nothing else. No explanation. No context. No indication of whether it was decision or something else. Hannah Soul's body was never found. By February 9th, the handwriting has deteriorated. The letters slant inconsistently. Some words are illegible. The ink pressure varies. Soft in some lines, gouged deep in others. Only 3 of us now. Lucas, Sophia, me. Olivier didn't wake up this morning. We checked him. He wasn't cold, wasn't stiff. He just didn't wake up. We left him in his sleeping bag. I don't know what else to do. Sophia keeps pointing at the sky. There's nothing there, just clouds. But she won't stop pointing. Lucas says the GPS is broken. I checked it. The screen works. The coordinates are updating. But every reading says we're in the same place. Exactly the same. Down to the decimal. We've been walking for 6 hours. Then, near the bottom of the page, I found my own jacket. I'm still wearing it. The final entry is dated February 9th, 2100 hours. The handwriting is barely legible. We're setting up camp. We have to. Sophia can't walk anymore. Lucas is trying to get the beacon working, but the signal won't go through. He says it's the terrain. I don't think it's the terrain. Something's wrong with the air here. It doesn't feel thin. It feels heavy, like it's pressing on my chest. Lucas says we're 4 kilometers from base camp. That doesn't make sense. We've been walking downhill for 2 days. I don't know where we are. There's a gap. Then, I keep seeing the cairn. The same one. It's always ahead of us, no matter which direction we go. Sophia says it's not a cairn. Beneath that, in shaky, cramped letters, she won't say what it is. The page ends. When the search team found the journal, it was inside the supply cache exactly where Elena had left it, locked in a metal box anchored to the rock with climbing bolts. The box had been cached on January 29th, before the summit attempt, as a contingency measure. The journal should not have been there. If Elena had descended with the team, she would have retrieved it. If she hadn't descended, the journal would still be with her. But it was in the box, and the handwriting in the final entries matched hers. The search team also found other items in the cache. A satellite phone with a dead battery, 3-in-use emergency flares, a laminated map with a route marked in red ink, a single glove, men's size large, a Polaroid photograph. The photograph showed the summit. All 6 team members were visible, standing in a line, arms raised. The sky was clear. The image was dated February 3rd, 1997. But there was something else in the frame. In the background, about 30 meters downslope, there was a 7th figure. It was standing upright, human-shaped, dressed in dark clothing. No one on the team wore black. The search operation continued for 11 days. Helicopter overflights, ground teams, thermal imaging. They found pieces. On February 15th, a torn section of a sleeping bag was recovered near the 6,400-meter ridge. The fabric was shredded, but not by weather. The tiers were clean, symmetrical. On February 17th, a boot was found partially buried in snow at 6,100 meters. It still contained a foot. DNA testing later confirmed it belonged to Lucas Ibarra. On February 19th, a climbing harness was discovered tangled in a rock outcrop. It had been cut, not frayed or worn. Cut cleanly through the webbing with a blade. No bodies were recovered. No other evidence was found. Part 3. The official report, released in June of 1997, attributed the deaths to environmental disorientation and acute altitude sickness combined with equipment failure. It cited the missing GPS data, the degraded journal entries, and the lack of communication as evidence of cognitive decline. The report concluded that the team became lost in deteriorating weather and succumbed to hypothermia and hypoxia over a span of several days. Miguel Andre's disappearance was classified as a fall into a crevasse or unseen crevasse system. Hannah Soul's absence was attributed to separation during a whiteout. Olivier Tan's death was listed as sudden altitude-related cardiac failure. Sofia Ruiz and Elena Vargas were presumed dead due to exposure. Lucas Ibarra's partial remains were noted as consistent with post-mortem scavenger activity. The report made no mention of the photograph. It made no mention of the cairns. And it did not explain how the journal ended up in a locked cache box 4 kilometers below where the team was last known to be. 3 months after the report was published, a package arrived at the Argentine Institute of Snow and Ice. It had no return address. The postmark was from Mendoza, dated May 14, 1997. Inside was cassette tape. The label, written in blue ink, said, Aconcagua, February 7th, Lucas, The tape had been recorded on a handheld dictation device. Lucas Ibarra used it to log voice notes during the expedition, backup documentation for the GPS readings, and Elena's journal. The Institute played the tape once, then locked it in an archive. A transcript was never released, but a researcher who listened to the recording later described it in a private interview. He requested anonymity. He no longer works in the field. He said the tape was 43 minutes long. The first half was normal. Lucas's voice, calm and methodical, listing coordinates, timestamps, and weather observations. Routine documentation. At the 22-minute mark, the tone changed. Lucas's voice became quieter. He was whispering, "We're stopping again." Elena doesn't want to, but Sophia can't go any farther. Something's wrong with her legs. She keeps saying they don't feel like hers. A pause. Wind, noise. Olivier's packing up his stuff. I think he's going to leave. I don't blame him. We've been walking in the same direction for 8 hours, and I swear we passed the same rocks 4 times. Another pause. Longer. Elena found something. She won't tell me what it is. She just put it in her pack and told me not to look. Then, faintly in the background, a voice. Not Lucas's. Not any of the team members. The researcher said it was too distorted to make out words, but it was rhythmic, like counting. Lucas's voice returned, shaking now. There's someone else here. The tape continued for another 18 minutes. Most of it is wind, noise, and breathing. But near the end, Lucas spoke again. It's not following us. We're following it. Then static. Then nothing. In August of 1998, a solo climber named Daniel Frost reached the summit of Aconcagua via the Polish Glacier Direct Route. On his descent, he camped overnight at approximately 6,300 meters. He reported the experience in a blog post 6 months later. The post has since been deleted, but it was archived by a mountaineering forum. Frost described waking in the middle of the night to the sound of footsteps outside his tent. Heavy, deliberate, circling. He assumed it was another climber and called out. No response. The footsteps stopped. Frost wrote that he waited in his tent for 20 minutes, listening. Then he unzipped the tent and looked outside. There were no footprints in the snow, but 30 meters downslope, he saw a cairn. He didn't remember seeing it when he set up camp. He packed up immediately and descended through the night. He didn't stop until he reached base camp. In the comment section of the post, another climber replied, I saw the same cairn in 2001. It was at 6,100 meters near the old cache site. I took a picture of it. When I got home and developed a film, the cairn wasn't in the frame, but there was something else. I deleted the photo. The thread was locked by a forum moderator in 2003 with the note, let's not encourage this. No one has successfully explained the logistics of the journal. If Elena Vargas descended with the team, she had no reason to return to the cache. If she didn't descend, she couldn't have placed a journal there. But the journal was in the cache, and the lock was intact. Some have speculated that another climber found the journal and placed it there, but no other expeditions were active on that route during the relevant window. Base camp logs confirm this. Others have suggested Elena cached the journal during the descent, intending to retrieve it later. But the final entries are dated after the team's planned retrieval date. If she wrote those entries, she was still alive and carrying the journal, which means she returned to the cache, which means she descended to 5,800 meters, past base camp, then stopped. No explanation has been provided for why she would do this, or where she went afterward. The photograph was analyzed by forensic imaging specialists in 1999. The analysis confirmed the image had not been digitally altered. The film stock, exposure, and timestamp metadata were all consistent. The figure in the background was real. Or, at least, it was present when the photo was taken. The report noted several inconsistencies. The figure's posture was unnaturally upright for the slope angle. No shadow was visible despite strong sunlight. The clothing appeared to be a single dark piece, with no seams or differentiation. The figure's proportions were subtly distorted, with limbs slightly too long for the torso. The report concluded with a note: further analysis is not recommended. Part 4. In 2004, a documentary crew attempted to retrace Elena Vargas's route. They brought altitude specialists, professional guides, and redundant communication equipment. They planned to film the cairn sites, the cache location, and the summit, then interview surviving family members and officials. The expedition was canceled after 3 days. The crew reported technical difficulties and returned to Mendoza. They did not elaborate. One crew member, a sound technician named Mark Hollander, later gave an interview to a Dutch podcast. He described the experience briefly. We got to about 5,900 meters and set up camp for the night. I was doing a test recording of ambient sound for the documentary. Wind, ice cracking, that kind of thing. When I played it back, there was something else on the track. It sounded like breathing, close to the microphone, but I was alone when I recorded it. I told the director. He listened to it. Then he packed up his stuff and said we were leaving. We were off the mountain by the next afternoon. Hollander said he still had the recording. He played a brief clip during the podcast. It was 18 seconds long. Wind, ice creaking, then faintly, breathing, and beneath it, barely audible, counting. The same rhythm Lucas's tape had captured. The podcast episode was removed a week later. The host said it was due to rights issues. Elena Vargas's family declined to speak publicly for years. But in 2011, her younger brother, Mateo Vargas, gave a single interview to a Chilean newspaper. He described Elena as meticulous, cautious, and highly experienced. He said she would never have taken unnecessary risks, and she would never have abandoned her team. The interviewer asked if he believed the official report. Mateo paused. Then he said, 3 weeks before she left for climb, Elena called me. It was late. She said she needed to tell me something, but she didn't want to think she was being irrational. She said she'd been having the same dream every night for a week. She was on a mountain, descending in the dark, and something was walking behind her, not following, just walking, at the exact same pace. She said she never turned around in the dream, but she could hear it. Boots on snow, steady, identical to her own steps. She said the worst part was that in the dream, she knew if she stopped walking, it would stop too, and if she turned around, it would be gone. But the moment she looked away, it would start again. She laughed when she told me, said it was just stress, pre-expedition nerves. Mateo stopped. The interviewer asked if he thought the dream meant something. Mateo said, I think Elena knew something was wrong. I think she felt it before she even got on the mountain, and I think she went anyway. There is one final detail. In 2016, a glaciology team conducting ice core research on Aconcagua discovered something embedded in a glacier at 6,200 meters. It was a laminated ID card, preserved in the ice. The card belonged to Sofia Ruiz. It was intact, undamaged. The research team estimated the ice layer was between 15 and 20 years old, consistent with the 1997 expedition. But the card should not have been in the glacier. Sofia Ruiz was last seen, according to Elena's journal, on February 9th, approximately 4 kilometers away from the glacier site. The team was descending southeast. The glacier was northwest. There is no scenario in which Sofia's ID card should have ended up in that ice, unless she went back, or something brought it there. The cairn is still there. Climbers report seeing it at varying elevations, sometimes at 6,100 meters, sometimes higher, sometimes lower. It's always described the same way. Stacked stones, roughly 1 meter tall. No marker, no cloth. Some climbers photograph it. Most don't. Those who do often find the same thing Daniel Frost found in 1998. The cairn isn't in the picture, but something else is. The journal remains in a locked archive at the Argentine Institute of Snow and Ice. Access is restricted. Requests to view it are routinely denied. The tape recording has never been publicly released. The photograph is classified as evidentiary material and is not available for independent analysis. The official position remains unchanged. The 1997 Aconcagua expedition was lost due to environmental and physiological factors. The inconsistencies in the journal are attributed to cognitive decline. The missing team members are presumed dead. No alternative explanation has been endorsed. But in 2018, a retired search and rescue coordinator named Carlos Mendoza gave a brief statement to a mountaineering journal. He had been part of the original search team in 1997. He said, "We were told to stop looking after 11 days. We were told the terrain was too dangerous and the chance of recovery was too low. But that wasn't why we stopped. We stopped because 3 separate teams reported the same thing. They'd see something on the ridge, always in the distance, always at dusk, a figure, standing still, watching. Every time we tried to approach it, it was gone. But the next night, it would be there again, closer. On the last night, it was 30 meters from base camp. We left the next morning. Mendoza was asked if he believed the figure was real. He said, 'I don't know what it was, but I know we all saw it. And I know that after we left, no one went back up that route for 8 months. I also know that Elena Vargas's journal ended 4 kilometers from base camp. We found her supply cache at base camp, but we never found the 4 kilometers in between. The last page of Elena's journal is mostly blank, but at the very bottom, written in letters so small they're almost invisible, there is one final sentence. If you're reading this, don't look for us. We're already here.'